Good afternoon. Hi, Gerry-Ann.
Hi, how are you today?
Good. So nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too again.
Our podcast is, thank you first of all for volunteering to come and be a part of our podcast for Life Lessons. It's our first time, so as you can imagine, we're learning, we're trying to figure things out, but we're super excited to have you with us.
Oh, I'm excited too.
Yeah. So the topic or the title of our podcast is Thinking Out Loud, a candid conversation about surviving and thriving in an accommodating world. I remember we tried a whole bunch of different titles until we were kind of figuring out exactly what would really work for what it is that we want to try to accomplish.
Yes.
But before we get into that, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'll try to break it down small. So, well, I know my name, Gerry-Ann. When I was a child, I had a infection, which caused me to have high fever, which caused brain damage to the occipital lobe of my brain. But they didn't know that. So for years, I was having seizures. About grade 2, grade 3, they kind of figured it out that I was having seizures. I had a really big one, and I stopped breathing. My mom had to do CPR on me. So then they took me to the hospital, and that's when they diagnosed me with epilepsy. I think it's occipital seizures. Yeah. So pre-occipital seizures. I have to check my name, but so I had seizures for years, and I was on anti-seizure medication. But they just thought I was. How do I say this? They thought that, I was just staring off in class. They didn't know because they were just very short seizures, seizures. So they thought I was staring off in class, and they just thought
I didn't feel anything.
I didn't know. Only thing I remember is people coming up to me and like, "Why are you staring at me?" And I was like, "I'm not staring at you," because I was having a seizure, and I would just. People are like, "Why are you staring at me in class?" I'm like, "I'm not staring at you because I don't remember."
Yeah. To
this day, there's some people I don't remember because that period of time I was having so many seizures. I don't remember. So people have come up to me in the past and been like, "Oh, do you remember me from elementary school?" And I'm like, "I have no idea who you are because I don't remember from all those seizures." So I was in a regular school then, a regular classroom. And then once I was diagnosed with that, then they tested me for learning disability, and I was put in a special class in a public school because unfortunately Catholic schools at that time did not really have accommodations for people with special needs, unfortunately.
Okay. So like specialized learning needs, I guess.
Yes. So I was in an isolated classroom.
Okay.
Mostly.
So like a segregated.
Definitely segregated. So they called us the SPED.
Okay.
It's terrible. I was the only girl in the class, I remember, and I had this one teacher, and they just lumped us all together. We had everything from learning disabled, behavioral, developmental delays, and my teacher, poor teacher, he was just trying to, handle the behaviors, and I felt like I missed out on a lot of learning. It's not my teacher's fault, but they just kind of clumped us together. So I was in that class from grade, I would say, all the way to grade 7. Yeah. Okay. And then, sorry, go ahead.
And then, I'm just trying to kind of see it in my head. So when you were in in the regular class, you were in mainstream, I guess.
Yeah.
Would be the
mainstream. Yes. Thank you.
Did you think that you had, did you have a difficult time, understanding the material from what you remember, I guess, even?
I don't remember much from what my mother told me that I was atypical and then, neurotypical until I got sick. And then I plateaued off in my learning and development.
So once you started getting those seizures, often?
Because I had the high fever and they didn't know what caused. And she said, as soon as after the high fever, I changed. My personality changed. I was very withdrawn. She even said that I might have been gifted, but we don't know before that. Because she said I was hitting milestones really rapidly, and then the fever hit, and then everything just went downhill.
Well, I know just from knowing you this year and just hearing you speak and seeing your thirst for learning, I'm always kind of a little bit in awe of like what you know. So I totally believe where your mom, was coming from that. So after grade 7, so you were in this classroom with different specialized learning needs and different kind of kids. And your teacher was trying to juggle everything at the same time.
He was such a saint, but it's so hard.
So then what happened in grade 7 then?
So then grade 7, 8, we went to the middle school, which was part of the high school.
Okay.
So, and I was in a segregated class till grade 9. And this class, I gotta tell you, this class was a tiny, tiny little room. Mm-hmm. It's like the size of a closet, I would say. It was terrible. And we were just stuck in this classroom all day. We got to go out for certain like classes like gym and art, but we were in there, and it's
a different time, right?
It was so upsetting, like, and it just was. We didn't have a window, like it was just so.
The setting was not like conducive.
No, it was hard. But then when grade 9 hit, they actually wanted to send me to a vocational school, school, and my parents said no. They said, she's going to stay here and we'll just accommodate her, and she's going to try, applied classes. So I did that, and I was successful.
And how did you feel like about that? Like, were you okay with, like, did you feel like you could go in?
Absolutely.
And
I was a little anxious. Because I do suffer from anxiety. I was a little anxious because, new things. But I was glad to be with my friends and, not just see them in the hall, right? And I did struggle, I had to have like reader scribes and stuff, but it was okay. It was good. Good.
So then what happened after that? So you went through high school with accommodations?
Yeah. So any exam, I would have a reader or a scribe, and they just, I tell them and they write it. And they read it to me and I tell them everything I did verbally. Everything. So like even like the literacy test, all that stuff, I did it verbally. So I had a reader scribe for everything.
Wow. And then when you graduated, you went to college straight away, or did you?
I did go to Seneca College for early childhood education, but I did struggle my first year because I wasn't adept at asking for accommodations. It was hard. Usually they kind of just came in high school. You didn't have to ask. They just did it. But in college, you have to say, look, I need this. And so it was very hard. So my first year, I don't like to use the word fail, but I, failed out. And
like you didn't get your credits.
I didn't get my credits because I had some classes that I didn't quite get the accommodations I needed. So I had to like take a year off and apply again. And then I went back. And when I went back, I was more confident, and I was just said, this is what I need. This is what I need to be successful. And that first year, I remember I was so proud of myself. I had a 4.0. I was like, yeah, finally. I was like, yes, I have a 4.0. But I learned, okay, I can't take 5 classes like most people. I can take 3, but I also worked too. So there's it may take me a little longer, but that's okay. So.
And then you went to university, or that was like a combination?
So it was a combination program. So it was a Bachelor of Child Development. So good for me because it continued on with the same program. So I had professors kind of knew me already and stuff. So,
and by then they knew kind of how to modify and accommodate their programming that you would be able to take in the information in a way that made sense to you.
Well, they had to give me all their, I had a note taker. And then they had to give me all their PowerPoints so I could listen to them, all the books on tape. But sometimes professors didn't get it. And, I've had professors who are just like, no, they don't want to, or they don't want to give me their slides. Those are my slides. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm just reading them.
So you really had to learn how to advocate for yourself. Like, that's what I'm getting. Like, in the beginning, your parents obviously supported, encouraged, and advocated for you, like every parent does. And then somewhere along the line, you had to learn to kind of advocate for yourself.
You just have to.
And move along. So.
Yeah. Well, what was I going to say now? Sorry, I'm drawing. Yeah, so like I've had many times where I had to run to the counseling office crying my eyeballs out because, I told the teacher I needed this accommodation and they didn't get it. So I just, got up and left because I was so embarrassed. It's hard. It's hard to say this is what I need. After years of doing it, you get better at it,
Mm-hmm.
And I had to say to myself, okay, I may not be able to do this, but I can do that. So like group work has always been hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
I hated group work because people did not get it. So, I tried to pull more weight to show that I was doing a good job. But I had people that wouldn't work with me because they knew I had a learning disability. And they're like, no, she doesn't do the work. It was just hard. It was very hard. People are, unfortunately, we have to educate people because they don't know. They don't know any better.
Which kind of brings me to our next question, which is like, why did you feel that it was important to volunteer to be part of this podcast?
Well, I think it's so important because there's not a lot of people out there to speak for people with learning disabilities like myself. And they need to see, that you can do it. You can go to college. You can go to university, And parents know best. So regardless of what the school says, you really advocate for your child. You know your child, you know what they're capable of. And I'm so glad that my parents were able to be like, no, she needs this, and, they know.
And you had that work ethic and that,
yes,
that, I guess, the drive to,
yes,
to go for it.
Yeah. It was a struggle, Luckily my dad's a teacher, so, a lot of nights helping me with my homework or, accommodating. I don't know if I coach gymnastics in my part-time, and report cards was a big struggle for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and not every club I've worked at had accommodated me as much as they needed to. Mm-hmm. So I'd have to sit there for hours with my parents, and they wrote it while I dictated it. Wow. And that was so nice of them. I felt so I'm so happy that they did that for me. They took the time to sit while I just told them and they wrote it. So years of that. Now, luckily, at my new gym, everything's digital. Mm-hmm. So it's a weight off my shoulders. And
it gives you more independence and more confidence and more
because I felt so bad sitting there for hours and being like, write this out. And but luckily they were very
at that time. I guess there wasn't the same kind of technology that can do things the way that
absolutely
Siri, Alexa, all of that speech to voice, speech to text recognition kind of stuff.
Well, I don't know if you noticed in class when we work together, sometimes you'll see me using the speech to text on the iPads. I don't know if you noticed.
I've seen you once or twice, but to be honest, I have
do it
not.
A lot.
Wow.
I'm sneaky.
You're not sneaky. I think you're just resourceful. I think, from what I see when I see you, I think here's somebody who figures things out, who finds solutions, who, has such a desire to educate and teach and serve her students that you find ways to you're way more resourceful than what I would be, because
thank you.
I use one way of communication, writing or typing or speaking. Whereas for you, you've had to learn how to adapt in different ways. And you just now it's become kind of
second nature.
It is your nature, I guess, to be able to survive and thrive.
Yeah. Well,
in this world.
Absolutely. I go on a lot of memorization. Mm-hmm. So when I read, I've memorized what the word looks like as opposed to phonetically breaking it down. Mm-hmm. So you'll see sometimes I'll be able to read a really big word and not read a tiny word. It's just because I memorized what it looks like.
I think it's brilliant.
So, but I noticed as the years gone on, I've made new neurological connections, and my reading is a lot better. My brain is just kind of makes those connections. So, because I have friends that's like, Gerry-Ann, you can read a menu now? I'm like, yeah, I can do it. Right? The pictures help, So I use so if I'm, at a restaurant, I'll look at the picture and then I'll look at the word and then I'll know what the word says because I'm looking at the picture. So I'm just guessing from the picture.
Yeah, but you're still hanging out with your friends. Like at the end of the day, it doesn't prevent you from doing the things that you want to do that every other young woman would like to do.
My friends read the menu for me if I need to read something, and they're very understanding.
No, for sure. So what would you do? What would you tell your younger self in elementary school?
Well, that's a good one. That you can do anything you want. Yeah. You just got to work at it and you can do it. You can.
Did you feel when you were younger that you couldn't do? When you were in that classroom, when you were in a class with just different people with different levels of learning needs and learning styles, did you ever think I don't know where I'm going with this? Or
absolutely.
Did you? Oh, you did?
Yeah. Because I didn't know. I wasn't learning anything, and I just felt like I was playing all day with those kids and the students I work, my peers. And I just felt very ruled by anxiety. I was very fearful because I also have anxiety, and I find because I'm so nervous about new things, it was very hard for me to, push myself, and my parents were very good at helping me with that. But I don't know if that answers your question.
No, fair enough. If you could give one piece of advice to parents, I know you said your parents have been phenomenal and just throughout and we will be talking more about it as we go through and do our other podcasts and get more into detail about things. Yeah. But what advice would you give parents at this point in our podcast?
I would say advocate for your child. You know your child and you know what they need. You have to, and teach them how to advocate because eventually they have to do it on their own. Mm-hmm.
And what do you feel most proud of, Gerry-Ann?
Sorry, I'm just smiling because I'm thinking about it. Graduating university and getting a full-time job.
Yes.
I was like, yes, finally, all those years I did it. And I was like, I proved myself,
Yeah, it takes a lot of we talk about resilience, we talk about faith, we talk about hope, we talk about a lot of things, but it's a lot of time, it's a lot of digging deep, it's a lot of asking for help, it's a lot of taking help, it's a lot of putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
When you reach a milestone, it's huge. Yeah. So can you tell us a story that you'd like to share with us in closing about just,
accommodations? About accommodations? What kind of story would you I have so many good ones.
You know what? We're talking about inclusion. That's what it's all about. Our whole podcast is about how can we celebrate all abilities? How can we include everybody? What are ways that we can do as parents, as educators, as colleagues, as peers, friends, you name it.
I would say, thinking off the top of my head here, we need to educate other children on different learning styles, because I do remember quite a bit kids would be like, how come Gerry-Ann gets this? I don't understand. That's not fair. She's cheating. I remember I had a friend in high school. I was, doing the cut and paste and then kind of for an essay, and she went to the principal and was like, how come Gerry-Ann gets to do this? I don't understand. It's not fair. I was so embarrassed. And I was like, so luckily my dad was a teacher at the school, and he explained to her, he said, look, it's Gerry-Ann's work. This is the way she starts and finishes it. But my friend came back the next day and she's like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. So I think just educating others on different learning styles. No one learns the same,
And how did this friend, did she remain a friend?
Oh,
Are
yeah.
you still friends? How did you guys?
Yeah, we're Facebook friends still.
Yeah,
yeah. It's she's moved away, but yeah, I just remember that was very upsetting and embarrassing that she went and complained. So yeah, it's hard. And even in university, I've had a few groups that didn't want to work with me because of my learning disability. And they didn't say that, but it was, yeah, it's pretty obvious. So, I worked by myself, or I worked with, one of my friends. I had this one group that didn't work with me. They didn't want to work with me and my friend Sarah at the time. They didn't want to work with us. And it was very upsetting. I remember crying. And I'm like, why don't you want to work with me? I want to, we're a team. The teacher put us together. No. So then my professor said, you know what? You two do it on your own. We got 100%. They got 60. Should have been in our group.
Yeah. You know what?
So I was just laughing. I shouldn't laugh at that, but it's just like, you missed out on working with me because I'm fun to work with.
Well, and you carry your weight and then some.
Yeah. I may learn differently, but I will try extra. I will try extra hard and, pull my weight. I will. Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Gerry-Ann, for
you.
joining us. I can't wait to continue on with this podcast.
Me too.
I think it's going to be very interesting, very enlightening. Mm-hmm. I think you have so much to offer us because you've lived it and you remember it and you're honest and you're candid about feeling comfortable to share, the amazing parts, but also sharing some of the difficult parts. Mm-hmm. Because I think I know for myself, just being able to work with you and to teach with you, that I've learned just how to be cognizant, how to be conscious, and that sometimes it takes something very small, in my eyes, to support someone to be their best by just changing a little bit the way that I think. Absolutely. Or how I act, or giving someone that little bit of extra confidence, or go get them, kind of or hey, you need a moment. That kind of thing. So it's made me just more aware, I think, of the needs of other people around. Absolutely. And when it comes to, disabilities, learning needs, there's so many different terms out there. Yeah. But I feel all of us, because we're very unique, some of us, it's very visible. You see it and you accommodate immediately. Yes. For most of us, we have all of these things within us. Mm-hmm. And we try to, like you were saying, you try to so that, nobody notices or nobody, so that it's on the down low or whatever it is. But I think those are the things that make us freer. They make us more accepting of who we are, and really just proud of what we're evolving to be and what we've accomplished, because it takes a lot it takes a lot to live and to do things in the world to begin with. But when you've got a different way of learning, a different way of understanding, and it's something that's just kind of happened to you, then I think it takes a lot of conviction and a lot of support. And I know I'm hoping, and I know you're hoping, and all of us at Life Lessons are just hoping that by people being able to listen to your story, learn from your story, and maybe think of things in a different way. Absolutely. Then maybe going forward in our own families, in our own friend circle, in our own professional circles, etc., that we can just help everybody just be their best, really. Absolutely. And people will tell you, what they need if they need help. And I think not to be ashamed. I'm some people try to just say, I need help, or this is the way I learn. But it's hard. It takes practice, because I've had many times where I'm like, oh, they're not accommodating. Should I say something? Should I do something? It's hard. Even now, I still have times where I'm like, oh. But it just takes practice. Yeah. Thanks so much, Gerry-Ann, for coming.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Okay, we'll see you next week. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.